Hey, Amazon sellers and other entrepreneurs. This is Dimitro from Sales Byte. Are you struggling with your Amazon advertising with the ACOS and CPCs constantly rising? Well, tune in today. I got a special guest who's in the weeds of Amazon advertising. He worked with some top Amazon agencies and now he's building his own software. Stephen Nog from that Amazon Ads podcast and AdLab Software. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Dimitri. I'm excited to talk and my passion is Amazon ads. I'm particularly enthusiastic around bid optimizations. I think it's a very, very misunderstood topic. And unfortunately, I'd probably venture to say 98% of advertisers and sellers out there are managing their bids wrong. So that's kind of what I've been dedicating the past couple of years of my life to, is just helping people get that right.
Could you maybe briefly go into your experience, like how you got into Amazon, and then a little bit about your software you're working on right now?
Yeah. So before I was in Amazon, I was doing corporate training in the construction industry. So I'm not a construction worker myself, but I was responsible for recruiting, onboarding, training all of the employees at the company. And the construction industry is cool, but it's very dated. And, we were just in this office with cubicles and bright white fluorescent lights that were just, it felt like a prison. There were no windows as well in the office. Um, and loved that job, but it definitely felt a bit boring to me a lot of the time. And then I discovered tech startups and digital marketing and thought that seemed really cool. So I just started, I was trying to get into Google Ads and I just hustled. I was probably spent like 40 hours a week for 3 weeks, just training myself, getting every certification possible, watching videos, reading articles, and then applied to a bunch of jobs until finally I got a job at AdBadger, which was in the Amazon PPC space, which I had never done. I didn't even think that Amazon PPC was a thing, but PPC is PPC. And so they hired me on, and that was where I really started diving in and really fell in love with it. I loved how much higher the conversion rates were on Amazon and the opportunity. And yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. It was mostly just interest, wanting something that was a little faster paced, something that, I mean, for me, it was a really, really a perfect fit because I love data analytics. I love math. But I'm not like, I didn't major in math or anything like that. My my major is actually biblical studies, so it's not very applicable to what I'm doing for work now. But the PPC side of things, it's just enough math for me to really accelerate with my strengths there, but it's not like, you know, data science, like super advanced building models. I think that's super interesting too. I'd love to do more of that, but in general, just like simple algebra and a couple, maybe every now and again, a little bit of calculus. For me, it kind of tickles that part of my brain that I really like having scratched. And then there's still a lot more on the strategy side, creativity side. Uh, Also, just talking with customers. It's a, if you're a PPC manager, there's a lot of talking involved, which I like as well. So it kind of just it's a perfect fit for all of my strengths, and I love it.
Okay, pretty cool story. I actually started on construction as well, but I was an actual construction
Oh,
worker.
were
That
you?
was, yeah, one of my first job. I just turned 18. About Ed Badger, because I think 2 3 years ago I was listening to one of their podcasts where you were there, and now a few years later I'm interviewing you, so that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Um,
I was on from episode around like 30 to 100, I think, was
mhm.
the range when I was on the PPC Den podcast. And then ultimately, uh I mean, nothing negative about Ad Badger, but the main reason why I left was because one, I just wanted to freelance, and so I've been doing that ever since. Just I kind of really like being my own boss, get my own clients. I really like the one-to-one correlation between how much you put in is how much you get out. Absolutely love that. And I've been able to make a very comfortable living for myself just by doing that. So um, there's that. And then the other thing too is that Ad Badger specializes in automation for Amazon ads. And I was always, I it has always been my observation since day one of getting into this industry, and I still have it now, that manual optimizations can outperform automation for a number of reasons, which we can dive into if you want. But even when I was at AdBadger working on the software there, I still managed all of the accounts I was managing there. I managed manually just because for a lot of reasons. But that's why we ultimately created Ad Labs, was because every software out there is just focused on automation, AI, all these kinds of things that really take the manager out of control of their PPC. And the top agencies and the top managers are still doing things manually on bulk sheets, which is super slow and painful. And so what I wanted to do, what I needed myself, was I wanted basically a web-based application that functioned like a macro-enabled Excel sheet, like a macro bulk sheet, basically, that could run a ton of formulas and calculations and functions for me, but have the look and feel of basically like a bulk sheet. So that was what I wanted. Turns out that's what a lot of other people wanted too. And it's been great just being able to help people and give people something that's truly valuable.
Yeah. And as you know, I'm also using AdLabs, and I'm kind of same opinion. I don't really believe like in automations or AI. The manual approach is better, but yeah, the problem can be the scale, and I think that's what your tool is solving. Okay, so let's get to actually some of our topics and questions. So one of the first things that comes to my mind when talking about Amazon advertising is bid optimization, and we also touched it a little bit. So tell me a little bit about the RPC, revenue per click. I know that's the metric that you heavily use in your software when optimizing ads, and kind of your whole logic is built on it. So yeah, tell us about it. What is RPC?
Yeah. So RPC, revenue per click bidding, is looking at, you take a keyword, you look at the total sales that keyword generated for a given time period, and then you divide that by the total number of clicks that keyword received for that time period. And that gives you the revenue per click for that keyword. And then you would basically set the keyword bid to being the revenue per click times your target ACoS. That is the oversimplified version. That unfortunately, I know AdBadger's improved it since then, but that was the end of the algorithm when I was working there. It was just, if the keyword has at least one sale, then bid equals revenue per click times target ACoS, which runs into a lot of problems for a lot of reasons. One would be, what if the keyword only has one click and one sale? The revenue per click is going to be insane, because it's like 100% conversion rate. So if your product was $20 and your target ACoS is, let's just say 50%, because you have good margins, that would set that bid, $20 on one click, 50% of that, $10, it would set the bid at $10, which is not a good idea. So, and unfortunately, a lot of people who don't like the revenue per click method, it's because of that they're doing that same thing. I was even talking to someone the other day. They're like, yeah, you can't just type in the formula, sales divided by clicks times target ACoS, and copy paste it all the way down the thing and ship it. And I'm like, well, yeah, like I never said to do that. The actual Ad Labs bidding algorithm, when I delivered it to the developers, it's a 12-page Word document of logic, if this then that, accounting for all the different possible scenarios. The guiding theme through the whole document is revenue per click. But the way we actually put that into practice, there's all other elements that are coming into play. You have to account for the placement adjustments. If you're increasing for top of search, if product pages is really underperforming, what do you do with a keyword with no sales? What do you do with a keyword with one sale, one click? These are all these different scenarios in which there is an answer to all of that. And there's a way in which we solved it. And that's kind of been everything I've dedicated my entire career to, basically, for the past 2 or 3 years, is really fine tuning this whole system. But to take a step back, why the revenue per click works is because mathematically it is the only way, and people can disagree with me, but at the end of the day, I don't even think there will be debates on like, oh, should you do revenue per click? Should you do something else? And what I am here to say is that it's literally not a debate. Like it is black and white, right and wrong. Like one is there. It's math. This is math, and you can't disagree with math. I mean, if you disagree with math, you're just wrong, but it's literally not a matter of opinions and I've done this and this works well. And I don't know, this doesn't work in all scenarios. It's like, no, it's literally math. And here's the math is that ACoS is spend divided by sales. And if you agree with that, then you should be using revenue per click. If you disagree with that, then you need to question reality, because the whole concept of revenue per click is that if ACoS is spend divided by sales, then cost per click divided by revenue per click is ACoS, because that's spend over sales. And so cost per click to revenue per click is your ACoS. And so if you were trying to hit a certain, now unfortunately in the ad console, there is no revenue per click metric. There's only a cost per click, metric. But in Ad Labs, we do have a revenue per click metric, which is cool. So you can see that.
There's no even conversion in Amazon console.
Right. There's not even conversion rate. Yeah. Much less are you going to be getting revenue per click. But if you are hitting your target ACoS, let's just say you have a 30% target ACoS. If your ACoS is 30% on any given keyword or any given campaign or the overall account, what that means is that your cost per click is 30% of your revenue per click. And that's it. How you got to that, let's just say your revenue per click is $1. Your cost per click would be 30 cents to hit that 30% ACoS. And so how you got to that 30 cent CPC, you would have gotten there one of two ways. Either one, you used Ad Labs, or you used like on that Amazon Ads podcast, we have several episodes talking about this. You've either used what we've taught on how to calculate bids, and you arrived at, after setting the bids, accounting for placement adjustments, maybe even throwing day parting in there, like after all is said and done, you landed at that 30 cent CPC, you achieved that 30 cent CPC, you hit the target ACoS. That's one way you got there. The second way that you got there is you guessed, you jumped around, you spent several weeks or months with like learning, machine learning, dialing things in. You wasted a lot of time and a lot of money to eventually get to the same response that you could have just had from day one if, instead of doing this increase, decrease by X%, guess around method, if you would have just calculated what the bid should be and done. The most common approach that people do, so PPC managers or software, they do increase, decrease by X%, depending on whether or not the keyword is above or below the target ACoS. And the reason why that doesn't work is because, well, there's a lot of reasons why it doesn't work. But one would be increasing or decreasing the bid. The bid itself is not a data point, is very important. So like if my keyword, for example, over the last month had 100% ACoS and a $1 bid, or sorry, a $1 CPC. If the bid is currently at 2 cents or like 3 cents, the logic would say, oh, okay, because the ACoS is high for the last month, we need to decrease the bid by 50%. But the bid's already at 3 cents, 4 cents. And if anyone's wondering, well, how come the bids, how could you have a $1 CPC when the bid's that low? And the answer is because the CPC is a historical data point. Your bid is a current status. It's not a historical data point. And so that bid might have changed over the course of that time. The bid might have been $1 for the past month, but because you've been reducing it over and over and over again, you've already reduced the bid so much because you've been decreasing by X% over and over, like you've been doing this on a daily basis or a weekly basis, and you've really brought that bid low. After you lower the bid, the historical ACoS is still the same. You know what I mean? So to continue optimizing it again and again and again, when you're looking back at the historical ACoS, is, you're gonna run into some issues there. And that's actually probably the way I probably should have best said it, is that, if a keyword has really high ACoS and you reduce the bid, now what's the ACoS? And the answer is it's the same. It didn't change. And so that's why, instead of basically making our adjustments to the bid itself, we are recalculating the bid. So rather than increase, decrease the bid, because the bid itself could be wrong or could be weird, or like maybe especially if there's multiple people working on the account, or the client sometimes jumps on the account, like the bid's constantly changing. And so the bid is not really reliable. It's just the current state. but it's not a reliable data point to adjust from. And that's why what we think is a better method is to calculate the bid new every time. So depending on the date range you're looking at, calculate what the bid should be based off of that date range. That's the best way to do it is given this data, what should the bid be? Enter that. To say, given this data, should we increase or decrease the bid is a little bit off, because that's not really accounting for the fact that what the current bid is could be really weird. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you explained it well. And I just want to say, if anyone watching this, they have any questions about RPC, please leave comments and we'll try to answer it.
Yeah. Before we go off from the bid thing, just because I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about this, because I kind of hinted at it. If people are wondering, what do you do if something has one click and one sale? Or what do you do if something has no sales? The revenue per click method doesn't work there. We don't use the revenue per click on that keyword per se, but we have go watch our podcast. We'll explain it. But there's one episode, I think it's episode 3. It was one of the first episodes we ever did on that Amazon Ads podcast. But we say, how do you optimize bids for non-converting keywords? And we take the principle of revenue per click. We apply it a little bit differently. And same with the low ACoS keywords. So go. If you were asking those questions, those are the resources you're going to look at.
The next important thing is, I think, campaign structure. So I would like to know, how do you structure your campaigns? And I mean, like, how many SKUs you put in there, how many keywords per campaign, do you use like multiple ad groups per campaign? So yeah, tell us a bit about that.
Now, in terms of campaign structure, at a very overall, I like single product campaigns. That's become my default. I used to not be a big fan of it, mainly because the first time I was asked to do single product campaigns, it was a brand that had like 1,000 ASINs, and they wanted to. We were actually someone from the client side instructed us with what the structure should be. So we were using single product ad groups. So every campaign was basically like a product category. So, and it was in the toys category. So you would have like, one campaign is, these are all our dolls. The next one is like, these are all our Lego like building block sets, whatever. And then within each of those campaigns, you would then have individual ad groups for each individual product. But then the client hired someone, and that client wanted to do individual product campaigns, and then not only that, but every single product needed to have, I think, at least 5 campaigns. So there was going to be an auto campaign for every ASIN, a broad match, campaign for every ASIN, exact match, a product targeting campaign. So a lot of segmentation that at first it made everything quite a bit unwieldy. The most difficult thing there is really managing budgets for that many campaigns. That's the trickiest part. Managing the bids didn't really change because we're doing it on bulk sheets anyways. So it really doesn't make a difference how many campaigns or rows you have with the bidding logic, because it might just, if you have a lot of rows, it'll just make Excel a little bit slower, but otherwise it's the exact same. So I do like that, because it ended up being really easy to find campaigns really quickly, or find ASINs, because we just put the ASIN title in the campaign name, and it's really convenient to where it's like, hey, we want to pause these 5 ASINs, rather than being like, okay, it's in this campaign but that ad group, and this other campaign but that ad group. You can just like copy paste that list of ASINs, filter for those, and grab those campaigns and pause them.
Okay, cool. That's a very similar approach. We use single SKUs campaigns, 1 ad groups, maximum segmentation. And yeah, I think it allows to drive best results, to really focus. And I hate it when, taking over accounts, and especially I had a few accounts taken over after people used Perpetua software, and their campaign setup is crazy. It's like always, it can be 50, 100 SKUs in one campaign. Phrase, broad, exact are like 3 ad groups in one campaign. So I really don't like it. And yeah, if you open any of our accounts, that's what you're going to see, the structure, single SKU in most of the cases. Sometimes, like with variations, we can put them in one campaign. depends on the scenario. But yeah, like reworking those Perpetua campaigns, because we kind of take them apart, to segment, but we don't want to like do it too quick because those campaign got some history, but it's just all mixed up, all those search terms, ASINs. So yeah, kind of taking apart those campaigns for the structure. Okay. I'm glad we are on the same page about this. So the next question I have, we got bid management, but we also got placements, which is like adds a whole another layer of complexity.
Yep.
So tell me about your placement optimizations. Like what do you even do with them? Like when do you understand you want to target on top of search or rest of search or product pages?
Yeah. And so this is just another reason why I love the revenue per click method, because it's consistent. It works. Revenue per click, which is basically just saying chase the revenue. That's all we're saying. When there's more revenue per click, increase the bids. When there's less, decrease the bids. And revenue per click is like 98% correlated with conversion rate, because like orders divided by clicks is conversion rate. Sales divided by clicks is revenue per click. So it's basically the same thing. The only thing that would maybe change is if your average order value is changing your sales price or deals, like that would create a little fluctuation. But otherwise, you can conceptually just think of revenue per click as conversion rate is basically what it is. So we apply it when it comes to day parting, when it comes to placement adjustments. All we're doing is we're saying as these items are increasing and decreasing the conversion rates, we want to be riding that ebb and flow with our bids to maximize the total number of conversions that we can get, because we've got limited budgets. We have cost efficiency metrics we're trying to hit. So it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of money when conversion rates are lower. We want to spend where the conversion rates are the highest, to really maximize the return and get the most sales volume as well as profitability. Revenue per click is going to be a very consistent method across placements, day parting, keyword bids, product bids, everything. The increase, decrease by X% method is wildly inconsistent. We already explained why on keyword bidding it doesn't work, because you're basically calculating, you're using the current bid as a variable in your calculations, which doesn't make sense because it's not a data point. And the same thing applies to placements, where people will say, I'm going to increase, decrease by X%, depending on whether or not that ACOS is above or below my target ACOS. There's two real quick reasons why that doesn't work. We should very quickly just put this idea to rest, because unfortunately a lot of people still do it. Reason number one, you can't go below 0%. Amazon does not allow you to decrease on these placements. So if you have a target, let's just say top of search is currently at 50% ACOS, you can't reduce it below 0%, assuming sorry, I didn't give a target. Let's say your target's 30%, the current ACOS is 50%. You need to reduce the CPCs there, but you can't go below 0. So the method doesn't work. All right. Reason number two, let's say all three placements, you have three possible placements, right? Top of search, product pages, rest of search. Let's say all three of those placements are below your target ACOS. You're targeting 30%. They're all currently at 20%. So then you would be increasing all three of those simultaneously. Well, that defeats the purpose of having different placements, because what we're trying to do here, these placements themselves, they don't have bids, right? Like, how much are you bidding for top of search? That's a trick question. Like, you're not bidding for top of search. You're bidding for a ton of keywords, and you're telling Amazon, I'm willing to pay a bonus on top of the keyword bids for a top of search placement. And so the way in which we should be thinking about placements is they are relative to each other, depending on how much better you have. All your keywords are kind of like your default bids, and that's gonna be like your default CPC. But you're telling Amazon, I'm willing to pay a little bit more for a placement on this one, or that one. If you're willing to pay a little bit more, if you increase all three of them, because all three placements are below your target ACOS, and you apply an increase on all three, then you're telling Amazon, you might as well just increase the keyword bid, right? Like, if you increase all of them by 25%, That's the same as just increasing all of the bids in that campaign for all of the keywords by 25% across all placements. The whole purpose and utility of placements is the ability to basically, one of them should always be 0%, because it doesn't make sense to increase all of them. You might as well just increase the keyword bids. So one of the placements is always going to be 0%, because that's going to be the worst performer. And the other two placements will be increases based on how much better they perform relative to the worst placement. And that is the proper way to do it. And the way in which we calculate which one is better or worse is not going to be looking at the ACoS, because again, the you could have one keyword in there with 100% ACoS, because that one keyword has a $10 bid, and top of search could have 100% ACoS because that $10 bid is getting you all that placement at top of search, and you have a $10 CPC there, even though top of search has a 0% increase. And so in this scenario, the solution is not to reduce the bids on top of search, it's to reduce the keyword bid that's causing the problem. But it could be that top of search still converts 50% better than product pages and rest of search. So we still want to increase the bids for top of search by 50%, but we have to reduce the CPCs on the keyword bid itself. And so, yeah, in this like environment, revenue per click, what we look at between these placements is we're looking at the relative revenue per click. By how much does the revenue per click increase going from product pages to top of search? That's going to tell us by how much we should be increasing for that top of search placement. And then when we optimize the keyword bids using all of the same revenue per click methods, they all work together. So it's a consistent methodology that allows you to hit the target ACoS across each individual placement, as well as every single individual keyword. And it's consistent. It works like they are all working together. Your keyword bids and your placements work together to create one ultimate CPC. It's the keyword bid plus all the multipliers. That is what creates a CPC. And when we're looking at the revenue per click and factoring all these things in, we can arrive to those solutions and answers and get the right result, as opposed to the other method, which is increase, decrease by X%. We're being inconsistent. We're increasing on a keyword, but then we're trying to decrease below 0% on a placement, etc.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Yeah. Placements are very tricky. And even like today, I see many people, I guess you can say experienced Amazon PPCers, they're basically saying, oh, you just got to find the balance between the bid and the placement modifier. It's kind of like people are saying it's impossible to calculate it, so you just kind of have to guess it. But what you're saying, there is an actual calculation to it.
Mm-hmm.
And also one of the reasons why I decided to give a shot to AdLabs is, before we also were doing it in bulk files, and just with the scale we were getting to, it was too much, like besides the bid optimization and all. And then we started doing with AdLabs. If you remember, we had a chat some time ago. I was a little bit worried. I started noticing some product page placements for my like keyword targeting, which I really never did before, because I always got bad performance. Like I would do other placements for, let's say, product targeting campaigns, like top of search, rest of search. Those would usually work well for product targeting. But like with the keywords, I would rarely get good results with product pages. So I noticed the software started optimizing my keyword campaigns towards it.
Right.
And I guess in some time frame, I noticed a bit of a weird like metrics, not very good. So kind of started worrying. But it seems like now it's fine. I see like I have keyword campaigns with good metrics for product pages, but I still kind of prefer top of search, rest of search for my keywords. I don't know. I think I should do more testing with the product pages placements for keywords, but it just kind of, it's weird.
Yeah, it's top of search and rest of search probably 80 to 90% of the time is going to outperform product pages. For this reason, there's a reason for it. By nature, anybody clicking on a product page ad, you're already second choice for them.
Yeah.
If someone types a search in the search bar, and they're going through the searches, and whatever they click on, that's likely their first choice, unless if they're opening multiple tabs, you could be a second choice. But on a product page, you are automatically at best second choice. Like you are not, like they are looking at another product that is their first choice. So naturally you are, second place. And so that's going to give you lower conversion rates compared to people coming on top of search and rest of search. Rest of search is maybe not as good for that same reason. Like people are clicking up at top of search, maybe open a couple tabs, go down a little further, rest of search, your second choice. So most of the time, like I said, 80 to 90% of the time, probably top of search product page and rest of search is going to outperform product pages. Not all the time. There are certainly certain products or categories where product pages do a bit better. One of these that I've seen is in merchandise, surprisingly. For like t-shirts, especially like merch by Amazon accounts, product pages actually do quite a bit better. Top of search does not do that well. Interestingly, there are times where top of search is the worst performer. I usually see that in these merch accounts. But the reason for that is because people are window shopping, right? They want to click around, all these types of things that nobody's planning on buying the very first thing they click. So that's the case. And then also really cheap products, really like products for less than $10 AOVs. I've seen those actually sometimes do pretty well on product pages too. So the way our math works out is it accounts for all that. So that's why sometimes you will see an increase on product pages, only if the data supports it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I see that even like the product targeting campaigns themselves, they don't always work. Well, you really have to put in the thought on what products you're targeting, because just like you said, there is a price difference. If your product is $15 and you're targeting a product that's $9.99, most likely you're not going to convert very well. Right. So it's just a lot of people, I think what they do is kind of harvest just all the relevant ASINs from their niche and kind of make product targeting campaigns. And
right.
There's a bit more strategy. Okay, so we got the placements. Now the next question, and already we briefly touched it, is the optimization date ranges. So, we got data, a lot of data we have to analyze on Amazon and Amazon advertising. And the time frame we take is also very important, like the length of it. You have accounts with different volume. So for one account, you may get a lot of data in 7 days, for another, not too much. What's your approach when optimizing ads? What date ranges you're looking at?
Yeah. By default, like probably a good general best practice, 14 to 30 days. But to get the actual answer, is that on longer time frames, you're going to have greater data confidence because there's more total clicks, more total sales data points. The downside is that you don't necessarily have super relevant data. Like let's just say if it's January 15th and you're looking at the last 90 days, which includes like all of like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all of the holiday shopping period, like that's not really relevant data anymore. So shorter time frames are going to give you less total data confidence, but greater data relevance. So that is probably the single most important variable that goes into your bid optimizations is your date range selection. I consider that a variable, and it's very much a garbage in, garbage out. If you're using bad data to calculate off of, or not relevant data, you're going to run into problems. And that's why I don't like automation software, because they just have a fixed look back and they're always using the same time frame constantly. Whereas for me, I'm constantly changing the date range. So when I'm in Ad Labs picking, deciding what data I'm going to be pulling in to use as my calculation data, I'll usually look at like the last 30. Well, first and foremost, I'm usually looking at month to date, especially like if we are at least 10 days into the month, because I want to see how are we shaping up so far this month. how are sales pacing? How's the ad cost of total sales? This is all stuff I'm accountable for to my clients that I need to answer for. So I want to look at just how that overall performance is doing. And then maybe ad cost of total sales is a little high. Yeah, let's say A cost is getting kind of high, and that's like my primary concern. Well, then what I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at maybe the last 30 to 60 days and see, okay, what happened that's causing A cost to go higher? Did we have CPCs increase quite a bit, or maybe conversion rates started dropping? And then let's say I saw conversion rates started dropping just within like the past like 2 or 3 days. Then I'm like, okay, like 2 or 3 days is kind of, let's say the past 7 days. In the past like week, conversion rates are really started dropping. I then go troubleshoot what might be going on there. Is it because products are on deal, or there are products out of stock, whatever? and then from there, I'll choose to kind of probably do a shorter time frame, maybe just the last 14 days. So I'm still kind of getting a little bit more like total data confidence, but I'm also a little bit more biased where like half of that data is that recent period where the conversion rates are dropped. And that's going to, in that 14-day period, that's a lower kind of overall conversion rate revenue per click, maybe compared to the last 60 days. So that would be something that I do. But let's say everything's smooth sailing, it's May 10th or June 10th, whatever. We're 10 days into the month. A cost looks good. Ad cost of total sales looks good. Everything's humming along. I'll just go with like last 30 days and just optimize off of that. Just like some minor, more just like routine maintenance, but no major optimizations doing. When I particularly need to like push or cut, I'll use shorter time frames to be a little more biased towards recent trends.
Okay, very interesting. And I just listened to a podcast you had with what's his name, Dustin from Better Media,
Yeah.
and he said they're doing bid optimizations daily.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Yeah.
what's your take on this? If you say 7 to 14 days, compared to daily, that's a very different approach.
Yeah. So I do optimizations once or twice a week. Usually once a week. Sometimes once every other week. That to me, that's another variable. Like the frequency is something that should change based on certain needs or desires or outcomes. So to me, that's something that requires a human brain to think through. What level of frequency do I need? Maybe sometimes there's a lot of volatility. You need to increase the level of frequency to balance things out. Other times things are going really well and you kind of don't want to touch, or they either because it just doesn't need it, or frankly, let's just say there's like a keyword that's like, you could lower a bid from like $1 to 95 cents, and there were 10 other people bidding 98 cents. And just that one, couple of points change put you from being, the first place in the auction to 11th place in the auction. So small changes like that can really, mess things up quite a bit, which is why if things are going well, I'd prefer not to mess with it. The reason why I don't see daily optimizations being very impactful is, especially the way Dustin was describing it, is like, they're looking at the last 30 days as well as the last 60 days. Okay. If I look at the last 30 or 60 days of data on any of my accounts, let's just say the ACOS is 30%. The next day, if I'm looking back at the last 30 days and 60 days, I can pretty much guarantee you the ACOS is still going to be 30%. Unless if we somehow spent the equivalent of 30 days worth of spend on a single day, that one new day of data is not going to move the needle on any of that historical data. So to constantly be optimizing based on the last 30 days, you can do it. The Dustin's idea is that he would rather be constantly having these tiny adjustments going on. The reason why I'm not a big fan of that is it just like makes it really difficult. Like if performance starts to trend south over the span of like 1 or 2 weeks, you don't really know where it went wrong because you made, tens of thousands of adjustments on a daily basis. So you don't know, like, it's really difficult to troubleshoot where things went wrong. Whereas you make a ton of adjustments one day, over the next week, things work really good. Sales went up, ACOS went down. You do some new adjustments over the next week, it's like, oh, now sales went down and ACOS went up. Okay, well, now that was a single day, and you can probably just drill down, find, okay, which of my targets or which of my search terms lost the most sales this week compared to the previous week. It's really easy to do that in AdLabs too, because there's we have a comparison thing. So you just go into the targeting tab, go into the search terms tab, which, by the way, search terms coming next week. You go in there, you look at which one lost the most sales from one week to the next. You look at what the bid change was. Okay, it was mostly this one keyword. This was like the single keyword that kind of drove most of the sales last week, that we lost it because, maybe the ACOS was 35%. We were trying to target 30%. Make the decision, okay, I'm going to try to set the target ACOS on this one back to 35% because we got better sales volume there. Done. It's really difficult to do that when you have automation going on a daily basis that's constantly doing these changes. So yeah, I prefer the more manual approach. Easier for troubleshooting, everything like that.
Yeah, I agree. I would say about 80% of accounts we manage, we do weekly bid optimizations. Again, it depends on the scenario. We might have a holiday or a Prime or a lightning deal, so you have to account for that. Yeah, I see for smaller accounts, 14 days works, because again, it's about the volume of the data. Okay. So we discussed some really interesting topics, and I think I'm going to start wrapping it up. And I just have one of the final questions for you. So I'm curious, what do you do with reporting? So I understand as an Amazon ads manager, you need to be working with reports first to analyze data yourself, and then also possibly to present to your clients what's going on with the account, where the metrics are moving. So can you go into this? What's your approach? Do you build maybe some custom reports, or you just use the AdLabs dashboard now to show all the metrics?
Yeah. AdLabs, I will sometimes like to share stuff in AdLabs. We have custom dashboards coming soon to the app as well that makes things easier. I'm not a big fan of just sharing, massive campaign tables that show everything. I like to get a little bit better visuals, pie charts, column charts, that kind of stuff. So with AdLabs, it's pretty easy to create, we have those instant pivot tables. You've seen those, right? The instant pivot table stuff. So those are really cool. So you can instantly pivot. You can group all of your search terms together to look at total search term or total spend and sales on one specific search term or one specific keyword target. And then you can download those as spreadsheets. And then I just spit those into a Google Sheet and then use their chart data. And I just turn this into a pie chart, turn this into a scatter chart, turn this into a line chart. And then I'll have those that I share with the clients, especially in emails, send those out. I think those are way better. Those PNG files of charts are way better than screenshots of the ad console. So that's what I do. I don't have a set reporting template. Andrew does. Andrew Bailiff, who's the co-host of that Amazon Ads podcast. He's got that, and it's really good. But for me, I'm very much I'm not a big guy on routine, because it bores me and I think it bores the client, frankly. So if if every single week you jump up with the client, and it's the same exact template week in, week out, it just starts to get boring. I like to surprise the client. So we hop on the call to do reporting. It's what am I going to get this week? What's the cool report? And I always try to find what's the most interesting insight from the last 2 weeks? What's the most interesting trend or observation or change that happened? And then it's oh, this one keyword started doing really well. Okay, that'll be the story for this week. So I'm going to take that keyword. I'm going to pull in the search volume, pull in the total spend performance, visualize it over time, show the top of search impression share, whatever, create some visuals around that. That'll be the reporting. So that's how I decide. That's how I prefer, I should say, to do things, is kind of more or if the client had a question early in the week and they're hey, I really want to push on this one product, boom, that's what I'm reporting on next week, the results on this. So we're going to grab that ACE and we're going to look at the results. So I'm usually tailoring the reporting based on what the conversation has been. I'm trying to kind of predict what I think the client wants to know based off of what we've been messaging about or whatever. And that's how I choose to report.
Okay. Yeah. Reporting is very interesting to me, and I know probably some ads manager are listening to us, and every client is different. Every client looks at different metrics. I mean, someone is like really focused on profit, someone is like focused on the tacos metric. We'll have all the links down below in the description and the comments for Ad Labs, for all of Steven's contacts, if you have any questions. So yeah, any final word from you, Steven?
Yeah, go to adlabs.app, check it out. Our bid optimizer is free to use. There's a pro version too that gives you more features, but the basic version is free, no time limits or constraints. And connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Okay, thank you very much, Steven. It was really great, really insightful. Have a great day.
Thank you too, Demetrio. You too, man.